With the NBA being so old as it is and how much history it has, it really amazes me what kind of timeline we are in currently. And it makes me think about the what if questions in the NBA. One split other decision could change the total outlook of the NBA today. It is insane. So I have decided and compiled a list of my top 10 biggest what if questions in NBA history. So these are just 10 that I thought off the top of my head. I'm obviously missing some, but I also try to look for more underground ones because I feel like those are more juicy and really get into besides the basic ones. Of course, I have some basic ones on here, but I really like the list I've made. So let's get into it. I can't wait for this one. Of course, this video wouldn't be correct without an honorable mention. So my honorable mention, and this involves my Nuggets. It is, what if the Nuggets didn't trade Donovan Mitchell on draft night in 2017? I can only imagine of what the Nuggets would look like now if we kept Donovan Mitchell. If you guys don't know, in 2017, we had the 13th overall pick, and we chose Donovan Mitchell. And of course, no one knows what their rookie's going to look like until you get to see him play, and years later down the road. Of course, but still, look at Donovan Mitchell today. He's one of the best guards in the East. And we had him with the 13th pick. And we decided to trade him on draft night to the Utah Jazz. We traded him for Tyler Lydon and Trey Lyles. I think Trey Lyles actually got a couple minutes with the Nuggets, but I do not know who Tyler Lydon is. And this stings because it makes me ask the questions like, would the Nuggets have won a championship earlier? Like, people say that it wouldn't have worked out because the Jamal Murray situation, they would have two guards. I think it would have worked perfectly. I think if Jamal Murray at the point to run the point, and you have Mitchell to run the shooting guard position, and they could both score. Cleveland's doing that now with Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So what do you mean it wouldn't work? It totally would. Like, how would that's another question I put out here. How would the Denver guard situation go? Would we trade Jamal Murray if things didn't work out and Mitchell ended up being the better player? And it also makes me think of the Utah Jazz championship window. Do you guys remember when the Jazz were super good? Like, they had obviously Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, who we also traded on draft night. Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Joe Ingles, I think Royce O'Neal, and they were the 1 seed at one point. I think it was 2022. Yeah, they were the 1 seed, and they had opportunities to go deep in the playoffs, and they just choked every year. So it makes me wonder, like, what would the Jazz look like if we kept Donovan Mitchell? Would they still be a bottom feeder? Or would they get an amazing draft pick like later in the year? What if they got 2018? I almost said Ben Simmons. Whoa, I gotta be careful. What if they got Zion Williamson? What if they got Cade Cunningham? What if they got any of those guys? So it's very interesting when you look now and how that draft night went. But yeah, that is my honorable mention. What if the Nuggets didn't trade Donovan Mitchell on draft night 2017? Okay, let's go into my top 10. At my number 10 spot, I have, what if Chris Paul to the Lakers never got vetoed? Do you guys remember this? This was early Chris Paul too. This wasn't like a few years ago. This was prime New Orleans Hornets. You probably didn't even know that was a team back in the day. All-star MVP voted Chris Paul. In 2011, I remember the Hornets owners were kind of a bit in a tussle. I'm not sure what was going on. They were figuring out some issues. So they had NBA commissioner at the time, David Stern, take over operations for the Hornets. And this year was also the lockout year. Games didn't start till December 8th. So there was a very big free agency because games didn't start at the usual time. So the Lakers proposed to trade. They decided they wanted to go after Chris Paul. They wanted a point guard. So they were offering Andrew Bynum and Lamar Odom for Chris Paul. And I think the trade would have went like, I think Pau Gasol would have went to the Rockets. And yeah, the Hornets got Bynum and Odom, and the Lakers got Paul. So that's how the trade went. And David Stern vetoed it. And I looked this up. He never said why. He has never come out and said why. But the probable cause is because the Hornets were getting screwed, and they were, because it was Lamar Odom and Andrew Bynum for Chris Paul. Are you kidding me? I mean, like, like, that's a terrible trade. But to be honest, it's the Hornets. They probably would have done it. Like, they probably could have tanked and gotten a better pick if they did it. And the trade got vetoed, and it didn't happen. Paul, that same year, averaged 20 points per game, 9 assists, 2 steals, and finished third in MVP voting. While Kobe Bryant on the Lakers averaged 28 points per game, and he finished fourth in MVP voting. The Lakers lost in the second round to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they went on to the NBA Finals. I'm not saying that they would have done well the first year. I'm thinking about the second year. As the second year, they got Dwight Howard. And Dwight was a beast back in the day. Can you imagine, I don't know if it was pre-injury Kobe, but Kobe, Chris Paul in his prime, and Dwight Howard at his peak? It makes me think about, first Kobe's legacy. Like, he would get, if they did very well, he would get his 6th ring. Now he's in the people might put Kobe above Jordan, you know? Chris Paul finally wins a ring. Like, that's just such a crazy, like, timeline that almost went down. And the Lakers could possibly have started another dynasty in their organization ever since the 2000s. So, yeah. That is my 10th spot. What if Chris Paul to the Lakers wasn't vetoed by David Stern? Okay, coming in at my number 9 spot, and I really don't hear a lot of people talking about this one, so I'm very excited to talk about it. What if the 2007 Phoenix Suns suspension didn't happen? Okay. It is Game 4 of the Western Semis in 2007. You have the Phoenix Suns and the San Antonio Spurs. Both teams are going at it. It's Game 4. Spurs are up 2-1. Late in the game, Spurs miss a 3, and Phoenix gets the rebound. They're up 3 with less than a minute remaining. Steve Nash, I think he was the MVP, gets the ball, runs it up the court to waste time. Out of nowhere, Robert Horry decks Nash. It wasn't like a full-on tackle. It was like a hockey shoulder check, but Nash kind of went flying into the pads, which is a dirty play. You should not be doing that. It's a poor sportsmanship thing. And Phoenix Suns players Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw left the bench to defend Nash. This is where it comes in. By NBA rule, if you leave the bench during an altercation, it is a 1-game suspension. So what happened? Amari Stoudemire, 26 points per game and 10 rebounds per game. And Boris Diaw, who was their spark off the bench, gone for a very important Game 5. Robert Horry was suspended as well, but the Suns lost 2 key players, and Horry was just a bench player for the Spurs. So it makes me, and later the Spurs went on to beat the Suns in 6, and then they would win the NBA Finals where they swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it makes me think, like, man, what if Amari and Boris just held their composure? I get it, it's your teammate, but you guys won, and Nash didn't get hurt even. He ran into the pads. It was a dirty play, I get it. But what if they kept their cool? They could have honestly won a championship. The Spurs handled everyone they faced after that. Also, what if they were only suspended 1 half? In Game 5, The Suns only lost by 3. And they were without their second best player and a spark off the bench. Imagine the Suns could have won their first championship in 2007. But of one fatal mistake. So that is my number 9 spot. What if the 2007 Phoenix Suns suspension did not happen? Okay, coming in at my number 8 spot, it is what if the process worked out? Of course, you don't know what the process is. It is pretty much the modern day Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid. I believe it was given the nickname by Sam Hinkie, who is the GM, who their game plan was to tank to get good players in the draft. And they did. They tanked for Joel Embiid, they tanked for Ben Simmons, they tanked for Markelle Fultz, they tanked for Mikal Bridges, Tyrese Maxey. I don't think they made the tank, but VJ Edgecombe, And this is actually still going on. As long as Ben Simmons, as long as Joel Embiid is on that roster, it is still the process. Okay? And, they have all this talent. They do. And they have no rings, no finals appearances, and no Eastern Conference appearances. They have all this talent. They've had multiple chances in their championship window. And they keep failing every single time. For example, I said this in an earlier video. 2021. They are the 1 seed against a 5-seeded Hawks team in Game 7, and guess what they do? They blow it. They don't move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Who does go to the finals? The Bucks. And the Bucks win the championship. In 2019, Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors. If Kawhi's shot does not go in, they have a chance to win in overtime. And if they win in overtime, they go to the Eastern Conference Finals, who the Raptors beat and later won the NBA Finals. If they beat Boston in Game 7 of 2023. I remember that. I was rooting for them. I did not like Boston at the time. That was James Harden and Joel Embiid. They went to a Game 7, and they absolutely laid an egg. And I think that was their last chance to do it. And the process is still going on. As long as Joel Embiid is still on that roster, it's still processing, as you can tell. So yeah, that is my number 8 pick. What if the process actually worked? Okay, coming in at my number 7 spot. What if the Los Angeles Clippers never traded away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? I remember this. It was a summer day in 2019, one of my favorite years of all time. And I'm just chilling, and I get the biggest Adrian Wojnarowski bomb I've ever got. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are teaming up on the Clippers. I was astounded. I thought they were going to win the championship, I'll be honest. I mean, it was Kawhi Leonard coming off his season with Toronto, where he looked like the best player in the league. You have Paul George, who finished, I think, top 5 in MVP voting. He looked great. I mean, this team looked good, man. And the Clippers, the trade details was the Clippers got Shai, Danilo Gallinari, and 7 first-round picks. Of course, at the time, I didn't really think of that. Now it's 6 years later. And look at the Thunder now. Those first-round picks and that trade became the current Thunder core. You wonder where they got Jalen Williams from? The Clippers. You wonder where they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP, from? The Clippers. That's how they built their roster. That is the biggest fleece I have ever seen. The Clippers went for, how do you say it? They went for short-term satisfaction instead of long-term game. And the Thunder did the opposite of that. They knew they were going to be like, okay, we're going to suck for a few years, but give us 5 years, and we're going to be elite. And look at them now. They have talent all across the board. Literally. their 12-man roster is elite. Like, are you kidding me? And the Clippers is the worst part. Clippers have nothing to show for it. I think they made the conference finals in 2022 or no, 21. It was 21. But they've done nothing. Now with that trade, Kawhi's really never looked the same. George keeps getting injured. He's on the Sixers now. But it makes me think, what if they didn't give up? What if the Clippers didn't give up all those firsts, you know? What would the Thunder look like today? Obviously, they still have SGA, but do they have Jalen Williams? Do they have Chet Holmgren? Do they have that deep roster that they have now? And are they successful today? It also makes me think of other teams in the West. Like, with the Thunder gone, let's just say, hypothetically, the Thunder aren't that good because they didn't get as many draft picks and they don't have that same core. Do the Timberwolves go to the NBA Finals? Do the Nuggets go back to the NBA Finals? Like, do the Lakers go to the NBA Finals? Like, it's just interesting how the West would look if this trade did not happen. Are the Clippers able to use those first-round picks for themselves and get up to the NBA Finals? Like, it makes me question who is the GMs of these teams. Like, are you serious? But yeah, that is my number 7 spot. What if the Clippers never traded away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Thanks, Steve Ballmer. Okay, coming in at my number 6 spot, we have, what if Chris Paul never got injured in the 2018 playoffs? I am sorry, Rockets fans, in advance. Let me set the stage. It is Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. The Rockets are the 1 seed, by the way. All led by James Harden, who's having an MVP season. Chris Paul, who's a great 1-2 combo. Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Clint Capella. Like, that team was stacked. And they're in a very, very tough playoff series against the reigning champs, the Golden State Warriors. The Rockets have huge momentum. They've won back-to-back games in the series. And less than a minute remaining, I'll play a video up here just so you guys can see it. Less than a minute remaining, the game is tied. No, I think Houston's up. But Paul drives. He spins and he shoots a fadeaway and he doesn't get up. I think he tore something in his hamstring and Paul was then ruled out for the rest of the series. The Rockets did win Game 5 later, but then they lost Game 6, and then they lost Game 7. The Warriors will go on to sweep the Cavs in the NBA Finals. It makes me wonder, what if Chris Paul didn't have the ball in that situation? What if it was James Harden? What if he does a different move? Because he went for that. He jump stopped and then he spin. I think it was on the jump stop. Like, what if he decided to do a different move? What if he attacked instead of jump stopping? Do the Rockets with Chris Paul and James Harden win their first rings? They don't have those yet. Like, what do the Warriors do after this? Like, is the Warriors dynasty done? Like, after? Do they blow up the roster? Does LeBron James beat the Rockets in the finals? That's also a good question to think about. Because obviously, yeah, the Warriors swept the Cavs, but what if LeBron was able to beat the Rockets? Then we would be having a different GOAT discussion at that point. But yeah, that is my number 6 spot. What if Chris Paul never got injured in the 2018 playoffs? Okay, coming in at my number 5 spot in this one, if it happened to my team, oh, it's so painful. What if Vlade Divac didn't bat the ball out to Robert Horry? If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me explain. The year is 2002. It is Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. The Sacramento Kings, yes, the Sacramento Kings of all teams, are up 2-1 against the defending champs, the LA Lakers, with Kobe and Shaq. And they're up 2 with 10 seconds left. Kobe Bryant drives right side, shoots a floater, and he misses. Okay? Shaq gets the rebound because Vlade went up to contest Kobe, so now he has to reset. Shaq misses the putback somehow, even though he was right there. And Vlade Divac has a chance to grab the rebound and really seal the game for Sacramento. But what does he do instead? He smacks the ball. I could definitely play a video. He smacks the ball out to a wide open Robert Horry, and Robert Horry bangs it. Hits the three at the buzzer, wins the game. LA Lakers have momentum in the series now. Like, are you serious? Lakers go on to win the series in 7, and then they later go on to sweep the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA Finals. And also, there was controversy in games 6 and 7, of course. They were claiming that the refs were on the Lakers' side, which they were. If you say no, then you're a liar. There was some shady stuff going on there. But it makes me think, if Vlade Divac just grabs the rebound off the missed Shaq putback, they take a 3-1 lead against the Lakers. Even if Shaq made the putback, it's a tie game. You still go into overtime. You still have a chance to win. That's why that bat to Robert Horry was so bad. Like, he batted it to the one open guy. Like, I'm not even kidding. You can see on the video, like, everyone's in the paint besides Horry, and I think Derek Fisher was on the perimeter as well. But of course, to where he hits it, that's where Robert Horry is standing. Like, obviously, the ref situation was there, but what if the Kings prevailed and went to the finals? Do they get their first championship? Possibly. And this also makes me wonder, what does this make of Kobe and Shaq's legacy? Like, they're the last team to three-peat. If they lose, they don't three-peat. Then we won't have a three-peat when you go back to the Bulls days. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta speak better. But, like, it makes me think, like, would people be eyeing Kobe and Shaq differently if they would have lost this series? Because people always think of Kobe and Shaq now. They're like, yeah, one of the greatest duos of all time. But what if they lost? They'd be like, they lost to the Kings. They're the most overrated 1-2 of all time. Like, it really makes me wonder. That is my number 5 spot. What if Vlade Divac didn't bat the ball out to Robert Horry? Okay, coming in at my number 4 spot, and this should be on everyone's list. What if Ray Allen missed that corner 3? If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me just give you the context for a few quick seconds. It is the 2013 NBA Finals. It is between the Miami Heat, featuring LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, and the San Antonio Spurs, featuring Duncan, Kawhi, Tony Parker, Ginobili, Danny Green, Boris Diaw. Okay? So, the Spurs are leading the series 3-2. One more win and they are NBA champions. The Heat are down 3 with 20 seconds left and they have the ball. Spurs head coach Greg Popovich decides to sacrifice rebounding for perimeter defense and subs out the Tim Duncan, arguably one of the greatest power forwards of all time. Subs him out for Boris Diaw. Heat go down the court in like a flash. They get to like the wing. They kick it out to LeBron James. LeBron James takes a terrible shot. I'm just being honest. Like, with 12 seconds left, he threw up the first look he did, and it was like a fader over a double team. But lucky for him, the Spurs don't have Tim Duncan to get the rebound. So Chris Bosh, taller than everyone, gets the rebound. Kicks it out to Ray Allen in the corner. And Ray Allen drills it with like 5 seconds left. Spurs missed their final shot, so it goes into overtime, where the Heat will win in overtime. And then they would win Game 7 later on and win the NBA Finals. And gosh, people say it's arguably the biggest shot in NBA history. Like, the workers had the Larry O'Brien trophy wheeled out for the San Antonio Spurs. They had the confetti cannons ready. They had it all ready before the even shot took off, and they had to take it all the way back. Like, that's insane. And it makes me ask the question, like, what if Popovich left in Duncan? Like, It would have been a contested rebound, yeah, but you have a better chance with dunking getting it besides Diaw. What if Allen misses? Like, if Allen misses, you have another good chance at the offensive board, but, you know, it's not a make. You know, you still need to make the three. It also makes me wonder about LeBron's legacy. Like, to be honest, LeBron got lucky that Allen made this shot. If Allen doesn't make the shot, he doesn't have 4 rings. He has 3. And people are calling him nowhere near the GOAT. No way. It also makes me think of Tim Duncan and Kawhi Leonard's legacies. Like Tim Duncan. Like, if he won, we're putting him in GOAT conversations. Like, he would have, what, like 6 rings, I think? I think he has 5. I can double check, but... And Kawhi Leonard, of course, like... His legacy... He would have 3 rings if they won this. He's already arguably the greatest small forward of all time. But another ring would help that. And this also makes me think of the Spurs dynasty. The Spurs did have a dynasty in the 2000s and the early 2010s. But, like, dude, that's just another notch under the belt for the Spurs, man. They're one of the more dominant teams in recent memory. But, yeah, that is number 4 on my list. What if Ray Allen missed that corner 3? Okay, coming in at my number 3 spot, this should also be on everyone's list. But what if Derrick Rose never tore his ACL? For context, the Chicago Bulls in 2012 were coming off an amazing 2011 season where they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and Derrick Rose won MVP, and now he was leading the charge. 2011-12 season, it was the lockout year, which I mentioned earlier. So games didn't start until December 8th. It was like 60-ish games, okay? And this Bulls team was stacked. Of course, you had the MVP Derrick Rose. You had Joakim Noah at center. Luol Deng, Kyle Korver, Carlos Boozer, Rip Hamilton, Jimmy Butler. Like, you had the squad to take down the Miami Heat. You know, the 3-headed dragon out in Miami. And you know, the Bulls did very well. They got the 1 seed. And then game 1 in the Eastern first round happened. They were playing the 8-seeded 76ers with, I think they had Drew Holiday and Michael Carter-Williams on that team. I actually don't remember. But Bulls are up 12 with a minute 20 remaining. My first question is, why is Derrick Rose in the game? I love head coach Tom Thibodeau. I think Tibbs is an amazing coach. I love the way he coaches. But why do you have Derrick Rose in this situation? Why? Why do you have Derrick Rose in? The game is over. Derrick Rose drives to the right block, jumps, and then passes out because he feels a sharp pain in his knee. He lands and he never gets back up. You can hear the crowd just sounds of sadness. And oh gosh, it's crushing. It really is. Rose got diagnosed with a torn ACL and was forced to miss the rest of the playoffs. The Chicago Bulls would go on to lose to the 8th-seeded 76ers. That is how much they needed him. And the Bulls and Derrick Rose really never recovered. The Bulls have just been a turnstile of failure, even though they're like undefeated this year, which is insane. But, you know, it's still early, so you never know. But as of the most part, they've been nothing. And Derrick Rose, just injuries kept holding him back. He kept getting injured. He bounced from team to team, and he kept getting injured. What if Derrick Rose was subbed out? They would probably go on to win the series. They would probably go into the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat, the team that beat them last year. They could get revenge on them. You know, do the Bulls make the finals for the first time since 98? Maybe they win. I don't think they would have beat the Spurs, in my opinion. They played the Spurs? No, they played the no, it was the Thunder. It was the Thunder. No, they still wouldn't have beat the Thunder. But it's like, it sucks for Derrick Rose's legacy, because if he was able to bring a title home to Chicago, oh man, it's tough to talk about. But that is my number 3 spot. What if Derrick Rose never tore his ACL? Okay, coming in at my number 2 spot, in my opinion, this is the biggest what if in recent NBA history. This shot ended the Big 3 era in the NBA, in my opinion. What if KD's toe was not on the line? For context, of course, it is Game 7 of the 2021 NBA playoffs. It is the Eastern semis. The Brooklyn Nets, who are led by the Big 3 of Harden, Durant, Kyrie, and others. I think they had like Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, I think. But yeah, they were led by that, and they were facing off against the Milwaukee Bucks, who had Giannis, Bobby Portis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. Good squad. Very good team. Series was very close. It went to a Game 7 in Brooklyn, where the Bucks were up 2 with dwindling time. Kevin Durant catches the ball, spins, rises over PJ Tucker, and he buries it. I thought, and everyone else thought, it was a game winner. After further review, KD's toe was on the line, and it was ruled a 2, and the game went into overtime. Where in overtime, KD would go on to score 0 points, and the Bucks got away with the win, and they move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. And it's crazy to think about. Like, literally, the Nets were this close from going to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they would have won. They would have beat the Hawks. Let's just be honest. Who was going to guard Kevin Durant? They would have beat the Hawks in the conference finals. Then they would have played the Suns in the NBA Finals, and who knows where that could have went. And if they win, that gives Brooklyn their first ring. That gives KD 3 rings. That gives Kyrie his second. And that gives James Harden his first. And that makes the Nets one of the scariest teams in the NBA. Like, if they win, do KD, Kyrie, and Harden stay? The only reason why they didn't stay is because they couldn't win. They couldn't win. Or maybe let's just say the Suns, because they lost to the Bucks in the finals. What if the Suns beat the Nets? That gives the Suns their first championship. Devin Booker is the greatest Sun of all time. Chris Paul wins his first ring. Like, it's just crazy to think about. And ever since that shot happened, the amount of, you don't see any big threes anymore. And if they try, they're all failed because the NBA is changing. That Bucks team was like, that was the first like role team pretty much. And the Bucks and the Suns were a role team as well. But you had Giannis just to be a force. You had Brook Lopez, the big defensive big. You had Chris Middleton, amazing scorer. You had Drew Holiday, tough defensive guard. You had PJ Tucker, a tough defender. Bobby Portis there as a body. Like, you just didn't have a big three with a ton of scoring. So I think that shot ended the big three era in the NBA. And that's my number 2 pick. What if KD's toe was not on the line? Alright guys, we have made it. My number 1 what if in NBA history. And this one's a bit underground. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this one. I have heard it once, and I decided to use it. What if the Raptors beat the Heat in the last game of the 2003 season? For context, of course, if you don't remember, in 2003, it is arguably the greatest draft class of all time. You have LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and others. Like, that draft class was stacked. And in the final game of the regular season, it was the Toronto Raptors versus the Miami Heat. Both teams were terrible. Both teams were tanking to get better picks. Because, again, this draft class was stacked. And this was a head-to-head match. So, this was a pick match. So, pretty much, whoever lost this match got a better pick. Okay? And Rasul Butler, for the Miami Heat, would not lose. He dropped 20 points, and the Heat won by 4. So that meant the Raptors got the 4th pick, and the Heat got the 5th pick. And we all know what happened. The Raptors chose Bosh, and the Heat chose Wade, of course. But, you know, if the Heat would have lost, the GM said they would have chose Bosh, and Dwayne Wade would have went to Toronto. That would change the entire landscape of the NBA. That makes me think about Chris Bosh's legacy. Does he stay in Miami forever? Dwayne Wade's legacy, of course. Like, the future of the Miami Heat, they might not become this big juggernaut in the early 2010s. Like, does LeBron go to a different team? Like, I don't think with Wade at Miami, he doesn't choose Miami to go there. He goes to a different team. The Heat, I don't think the Heat win the finals in 06 because they don't have that 1-2 punch with Wade and Shaq. So that gives Dirk another ring. Like, it's just crazy that game has literally done so much, because the GM of the Heat said if they got the 4th pick, they would have chose Bosh. They needed a big. But Wade fell to them, which arguably could have been the best thing ever, because Dwayne Wade became the greatest Miami Heat player of all time. All because they won what felt like was a meaningless game, what turned out to be arguably the most meaningful game, I think, in program history. So yeah, that is my number one what if question. What if the Raptors beat the Heat in the last game of the 2003 season? That is going to be the video, guys. I had an insanely fun time making this video. It was fun learning all of this information, and you know what really, like, what could have been the entire landscape of the NBA could be like an alternate reality. You know, it's just insane. But you know, as always, thank you for watching me, and as always, be safe, folks.